Did you know that BDSM and kink are healthy outlets for aggression, imagination, and attention? Hi, and welcome to The Partition, home of kinky wellness. My name is Dana Slosser, and I'm a sexual wellness coach that dives deep into all things kinky. I'm here to show how BDSM and kink deserves a rightful spot within the sexual wellness conversation. So, let's talk about it. Hey, and welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about pair bonding, what it is, why it matters, and how hookup culture is destroying it. So, what is pair bonding? Well, according to Google, pair bonding is when people form a close relationship through courtship or sexual activity with another person. In brief, pair bonding is what happens to us when we share intimacy with another person. And this term was coined in the 1940s. According to evolutionary psychologists David Barash and Judith Lipton, they said in their 2001 book, The Myth of Monogamy, that there are at least 6 variants for pair bonds. There's short-term pair bond, which is a transient mating or association. Long-term pair bond, which is bonded for a significant portion of their life cycle of that pair. There's lifelong pair bond, which is mated for life. Then we have social pair bonds, which is attachments for territorial or social reasons. Then there's clandestine pair bonds, which is a quick pair copulations. And then there's dynamic pair bonds, which is the Gibbon mating system. But to be fair, I don't really know too much about the last two. I think primarily we focus on the short-term pair bonds like dating or hookup culture. Then we have our long-term pair bonds, so long-term partnerships, relationships, things like that. And of course, your lifelong pair bonds, as we said, those people that get married for life. And then our social pair bonds, which all of us have within either our personal or work life systems. But humans can experience all those pair bonds. So we can create pair bonds by combining our social interactions and our biological factors, such as the neurotransmitters like oxytocin, vipapacerin, and dopamine, which happens to us when we have sex. So pair bonding is a biological phenomenon, and it's not really equivalent to any other human institutions like marriage, because just because two people are married, that doesn't actually mean that they're bonded. Pair bonding is one of the main functions that has to happen between romantic love. And we all know countless relationships, that there's no love in that marriage. They're not bonding at all. They're just married by law. Now, we can still pair bond to someone without sex. It's not that we don't pair bond. We do have those social pair bonds that we have, right? But the chemicals and the neurotransmitters that happens to us during sex, those happens to us whether we are aware of it or not. So it's better to be aware that there is such thing as pair bonding than not knowing about it. But that doesn't mean all pair bonding is the same. So how males pair bond to a partner is different than how a female pairs to their bond. Now I'm going to be talking about heterosexual relationships because this is what the research that I found was off of. So what we know from biology and, just through example is that men naturally want to hit it and quit it because it's nature telling them to go out there and just go procreate, just to go have as much sex as they can so they can increase the chances of them having offspring. But really what keeps men from doing this, number one, is the social norms that we have around this. And number two, the bonding that occurs when they are with a single partner that meets their intimacy needs. Now, I know that there is a stigma that guys go out there and have lots and lots of sex, but I believe that those stats are coming from a small percentage of males. I do believe that there's ever increasing data that's showing that males are actually becoming virgins longer. But anyways, I'll save that for another one. But back to pair bonding, the way that this kind of gets overridden for men is that there's studies that show when a man is bonded with a woman, their attraction to other women actually decreases. This is because as much as men are hardwired to go out there and spread their seed, they also have built within them kind of this override button. And this override button is the pair bond that happens between him and his partner as long as his intimacy needs are getting met. Now, of course, this isn't to say this is for every case, for every single male, but naturally in nature, this is kind of nature's way of turning a playboy into a loyal family man. So basically, as long as that guy's intimacy needs and sex needs are getting met, then naturally will want to stay with that one woman, which kind of brings me to an idea that I've heard of and I've probably done and said it, but it's withholding sex from your boyfriend when you're tired or like you're upset. Like I know that there's been conversations like with me and my girlfriends get thrown around, oh, don't have sex with him if he makes you upset, blah blah blah, like back when I was, in my early 20s. But I never really thought that was a good option. Like why would I want to take away something I enjoy doing? That would just be, punishment for both of us. And I'm not saying having sex when you feel pressured or like if someone's forcing you into it, nothing like that. But again, like not doing something because I'm tired is such a lazy option for me. And if my partner is a good man and treats me good and takes care of me, I want to be able to take care of him. So being tired doesn't stop me from getting work done or going to the gym. So it doesn't really stop me from making him happy either. So withholding sex is just not something you should. And now there's, studies saying that you need to meet their intimacy needs. Like men and women both have needs and they're both different, right? So this is one of them. And if it's something that you're always constantly feeling tired about, then it's important to remember that you need to create time and have enough energy for intimacy and sex to keep that bond from breaking down. Plus, having a good pair bond between you and your partner has literally said to give you an afterglow. There was a study done of newlyweds published in the Psychology Science, which is a journal of the Association for the Psychology Science, that said partners experience a sexual afterglow that can last up to 1 to 2 days. And that afterglow is linked with our relationship quality over the long term. So basically, their research showed that sexual satisfaction remained at its peak 48 hours after sex. And from the study, it said people who reported a higher level of sexual satisfaction 48 hours after sex reported higher levels of relationship satisfaction several months later. Basically, the couples that were still having the same amount of sex in the later part of their relationship as the beginning were more satisfied and happier than the couples whose sex life slowed down. How they did this is that the scientists hypothesized that sex might provide a short-term boost to sexual satisfaction, which sustains the pair bond in between sexual experiences and enhancing partner relationship satisfaction over the long term. So to test their theory, the researchers examined data from two different independent studies. Long story short, the data showed that sex on a given day was linked with lingering sexual satisfaction over time. Having sex on a given day was linked with sexual satisfaction that same day, which was linked with sexual satisfaction the next day and even 2 days later. To spare you of all the big scientific words, it basically said that intimacy is what helps strengthen the relationship while making us feel good at the same time. Now, there was a study I wanted to show you from the Medical Institute for Sexual Health because I was watching a video that was outlining the scientific differences that men and women have when it comes to casual flings. But when you actually go to research the article through their channel or even through Google, the site itself, it seems that they pulled this study down, which makes me so frustrated because I have at least like 2 or 3 other articles where it links to this one website. So obviously it was there, but the study basically was done on voles because voles are like super similar to humans and how we bond and pair bond. And apparently we've been using them for a really long time. They're basically like little mice, a kind of mice. So in the video, he actually recorded the screen grab right from the Medical Institute for Sexual Health. So I'm going to take the next bit right from the study from his video, just so I make sure that it's all there. So I'm going to go slow, but it is just a paragraph. So the neurophysiology of pair bonding is very complex, which makes it difficult to explain in layman's language. That is one reason that Hooked has been such a popular read. The authors were able to break down for parents and other concerned adults these difficult brain processes in an understandable, relatable way. However, as the explanations get passed on by word of mouth, the pitfall of oversimplification can quickly turn to misunderstanding and inaccuracy as people familiar with oxytocin, a neurochemical that is critically involved with bonding, a common erroneous theme emerged that oxytocin production decreased with repeated closeness, and thus people who repeated closeness with multiple partners no longer have the ability to bond with partners due to lack of oxytocin. The truth is that people can damage their ability to bond but it is not because of a decrease in oxytocin production. It is a much more complicated process involving brain molding, other neurochemicals, and higher brain functions. Our behavior actually changes our brain. The connections between neurons that are stimulated by our brain increase with more use and decrease with less use. When a couple engages in sex, neurotransmitters such as oxytocin, vasopressin, and dopamine stimulate formation of synaptic connections in the brain associating the pleasure of intimacy with the partners involved, encouraging them to bond and have more intimacy together, leading to the beginning of a family unit. The last paragraph of the study continues with, however, when an individual chooses to engage in casual intimacy, breaking bond after bond with each new partner, the brain forms a new synaptic map of one-night stands. This pattern becomes the new normal for the individual. When and if the individual later desires to find a more permanent partner, the brain mapping will have to overcome, making a permanent bond more difficult to achieve. Often the individual is not aware that the brain has adapted to the behavior pattern, and she begins to think, quote, this is just the way I am, further reinforcing the pattern. In conclusion, research on bonding continues to support previous research showing that the brain is strongly influenced by bedroom behaviors. Dopamine pathways, as well as oxytocin and vasopressin and other neural symptoms, are important factors in the formations of bonds. When a person engaged in intimate behavior, there are consequences above and beyond the possibility of unwanted pregnancies and STIs. So there you have it. In scientific format, having multiple partners breaks the ability to bond long term. And honestly, it's saying that this is backing up other research. And it's kind of fucked up how this study is taken down, because they all lead back to this. And of course, we live in this culture right now that lies to women, that says it's empowering to sleep with as many people as they can, knowing full well that there's studies and evidence that prove the exact opposite, and that having casual sex breaks your ability to bond with another person. And the reason this affects women in such a worse way is because women are not programmed with that backup plan to override it like a man. If a woman breaks her ability to bond with a long-term partner because now she thinks having multiple partners is, quote, just the way she is, then she has to change her way of thinking through pure will, which is so much more harder, especially because you've adapted this persona of this is just who I am. And then you have a culture that encourages that and pushes that for you. You're kind of trapped within this hell that you didn't even know that you created. And it's partly not your fault. And it starts so young. I'm pretty sure every girl in the West has read at least one article of Cosmopolitan. I remember my aunt, like, she used to read that, and she read one article, and it said how to make your hips sway more, and you put an orange between your legs. And I just remember her and I, like, going up and down, just like pretending that. And it was just so ridiculous. And like, now that's evolved into this attitude that women's body counts don't matter, when actually it's so clear that it really does. And it just goes to show how much our sexual wellness has been hijacked, and how much we need information and studies like this to really make mainstream or get passed around. No matter how much the media pushes this narrative that casual sex is good for them, it just isn't. Like the article said, when a person engages in intimate behavior, there are consequences above and beyond the possibility of unwanted pregnancies and STIs. So again, right, on a biology level, men are primarily been wired to go out there and have as many offsprings as they want, and they can have that option overridden. You know, that instinct can get overridden should they find someone that meets their intimacy needs. Meanwhile, back in the day, before the pill, before IUDs, before patches, before these shots, before everything that you could stop a pregnancy, women had to be picky when choosing a mate, because they would get pregnant, you know? So it's in the women's DNA to pick the best mate in health, strength, prosperity. And of course, that makes sense. You know, you don't want to get pregnant by somebody who's not going to take care of you or take care of your kid. You want that provider when you're sharing a child with them. Like, it's, you know, it takes a village to raise a child, right? Isn't that the sentence? But anyways, we've created these things to stop pregnancies, but women's bodies, we haven't caught up to these advancements made by technology. And clearly, there's studies that show just because women can go out there and get Tinder and sleep with anyone they choose doesn't mean they should. I know it's been branded to us as empowerment, but studies on pair bonding really is the science behind why numbers matter, especially for women. So this isn't a hate on like, oh, men can do stuff that we can't do. It's just we aren't programmed the same way, and you are going to hurt yourself, and you don't have that backup plan the way that a male does. And why is this report taken down? It's so annoying. I'm going to find it. I'm going to find this report, but I feel good because I still have the screen grabs of it being recorded while it was still there. So it's important to know that your body count, does kind of matter as a woman. And just watch out if you're not feeling good in hookup culture. This might be reason why. So again, consider something more long term. Consider a power dynamic relationship or partnership out of BDSM and kink. They're designed for more of a long-term engagement. And you know that there is some sort of bonding that you need to have because there is some sort of trust that needs to have. It doesn't have to go into this, I'm going to start a family with them. But the things that you do within BDSM and kink do require a certain level of bonding, of honesty, trust, all these considerations that hookup culture just doesn't give you. You just can't get it. They're two different breeds, but you can still get sex out of both of them. When you enter a power dynamic relationship, unless you go and the first time's bad and you're like, no, I don't want to do this, then move on to the next, right? Obviously, maybe it wasn't everything that it was supposed to be. Maybe you just didn't get a click with the guy or the girl that you're doing this with. But when you put in the effort of your partnership basics in a power dynamic relationship, you wean a lot of people out very quickly in the first bracket. So it's kind of when your first time round, it's the second interview. So trust that you put in some effort beforehand. Meanwhile, hookup culture is just very quick and instant. Pair bonding is the reason why we have hookup culture blues. And I am just going to keep pushing this. If anybody else wants to talk about pair bonding, I would absolutely love to talk more about the science behind this. I definitely am going to research it a lot more. And I can't wait to tell you guys more about it. But let me know your thoughts. I don't know. What do you guys think about pair bonding? Do you think women should ignore these type of scientific data? Does it go against the grain? Let me know your thoughts. But anyways, thank you so much for listening. That's it for me. As always, stay kinky. And of course, if you're new here or to the BDSM basics, check out my e-learning BDSM basics at thepartition.life, where I make it easy to learn the basics of BDSM and kink. Have a great day. Bye.